Hi, this is Ed Barks, and welcome to this edition of Communications Training TV. Today I'll talk about how international spokespeople can deal with the American media, providing insights designed to help you sharpen your communications edge today and into the future. So let's get started. If you have been posted to the United States for business or diplomatic purposes, first of all, welcome. By now you have some understanding of business etiquette in the States. Well, just as you need to recognize in business situations when to shake hands with your colleagues and when to kiss them on the cheek, so must you realize that you need to follow the customs of the American media if you wish to advance your organization's goals. So let's spend the next few minutes listing some features about the U.S. media that you need to know about. First, there is no official government-owned media in the U.S. Reporters for American news organizations report to editors who ultimately report to corporate owners in most cases these days. As a result, U.S. media generally has a very sharp focus on how a story affects the reader or the viewer, and not so much on how it might impact government officials. This also means that reporters in the U.S. are less likely to show their social or political agenda unless they are opinion columnists. The bottom line? Objectivity is valued by American journalists. This makes it unwise to ask for approval of any article prior to publication by a U.S. news outlet. As a matter of principle, it's not done, and you will look either uninformed or disreputable if you make such a request. Now, as you have no doubt witnessed countless times, Americans tend to be less formal. For example, reporters may call you by your first name the very first time you meet them. Now rest assured, this is not a sign of disrespect. It is simply, for better or worse, part of American culture. This lack of formality also extends to the exchange of business cards. There is less reverence attached to that tradition in the U.S. American reporters may accept your business card with barely a glance, then stuff it into their pockets immediately. Again, this is not intended to be disrespectful. It's just the way many Americans conduct business. And here's another dynamic to note. Be prepared for the fact that American reporters may know little about your country and your efforts. The sad truth is Americans in general pay relatively little attention to international affairs unless they directly impact the U.S. Another note, if you deal with the arts, be forewarned that coverage of those issues in the U.S. is increasingly limited to a fixation with celebrities. With the exception of a handful of major city newspapers and some trade publications, there is little in-depth coverage of such cultural institutions as symphonies, theater, or opera. Here's an important sidebar. If you are accustomed to dealing with the Reuters wire service back home, it's important to understand that Reuters is not the dominant news service in the States. That honor belongs to the Associated Press, or the AP as it is known. In fact, I know of one international spokesperson now posted to the U.S. who was puzzled when he first encountered an AP reporter. Well, not realizing what a critical news outlet it is, he missed a golden opportunity to promote his organization. So don't let yourself fall into this trap of ignorance. Most newspapers and many radio and television stations use stories provided by the AP, giving that news service a vast and powerful reach. A few final notes if you are now posted to Washington, D.C., which happens to be my home base too. In many other nations, news outlets are concentrated in the capital, but that is not exclusively the case in the U.S. Well, to be sure, the Washington Post remains one of the country's newspapers of record, and many major news organizations do maintain bureaus in Washington. Yet, it is important to recognize that dozens of major American cities have large and influential newspapers that may be interested in hearing of your efforts. Now, on the other hand, there was a day not long ago when many major news outlets had a robust presence in the nation's capital. However, recent years have witnessed the closure of bureau after bureau, due largely to tough economic times in general and for the media in particular. This means there are fewer reporters interested in hearing your story. So you may have to work a bit harder than your predecessors did. The exception to this rule seems to be a growth of international news bureaus in Washington, so be sure to check if a media outlet that covers your region has recently established a Washington presence. Well, these are some of the features of the American media you need to know if you hope to gain coverage for your organization and your issues while in the U.S. I encourage you to begin to apply this knowledge by asking yourself, what is the one lesson I can take from this video and apply the very next time I'm interviewed by an American reporter? And how can I use this advice to help boost my career and my organization over the long run? I'm Ed Barks. Thanks for joining me for this edition of Communications Training TV. I encourage you to check out all of my video learning resources and invite you to get in touch whenever I can help you sharpen your communications edge.